most likely going to be an outdoor. So, I mean, we definitely shall see for sure. Uh, but I will tell you this though. Oh, wait a minute. One of one half of We Educated Camp is calling in. All right, joining me right here, right now, we got both members of We Education Camp. We got Z, the bassist, and we got the hip hop artist Johnny G. Both we have
This is
some.
me.
Uh, what's going on, man?
Not much. How's it going?
I'm doing real good, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to call in.
Thanks for having me on, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'll get to you first. Talk about how the We Education Camp got together.
Well, it all started. John and I were in another band based out of Lexington called Brick House Blend. Kind of did a little mix of kind of some classic rock kind of sounding stuff with some hip hop and funk. It was a really interesting kind of sound. And as that band kind of went by the wayside, John approached me about wanting to do a new project, and we spent several months trying to. It went in several different directions. Whether we weren't sure if we wanted to do a full live band or what, and we tried several things, trying out several musicians and several singers, and nothing just felt right. And then finally one night we decided we were just going to basically just the two of us get together and start making music, just me and him. He would write, lyrics and do all sorts of DJ work, lay down samples, all that stuff. I would do live instruments, whatever that was. And we put a few things together. They're on our first album, Psyops Boombox, and kind of went from there.
I got a chance to hear you guys' music through Reverb Nation, and I definitely enjoyed the music. And most of your music speaks about social justice, which is pretty cool. Okay, now John is trying to call back in. I'm gonna go ahead and let's see. Second time is the charm. John, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, man.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Awesome, man. Sorry about the technical difficulties there.
Oh, man, we're good.
Yeah.
I
Z,
just made sure my phone was working right.
oh, okay. Z, are you still there?
I'm still here.
All right, cool, cool. We got y'all both on. So I was
Cool.
just asking Z about how the group got together, and now that you're here, John, we're going to hear your side. Like, what's it been like being part of this group and working with Z?
And for me, it goes back to a long, long time ago, growing up in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, where pretty much everybody I knew was listening to hip hop. And so this is, 1984. People started listening, bringing their records to school, and I just started hanging out with these guys and really started getting into it about 88, 89. And pretty much we would just listen to it, and eventually one of the guys in my group of friends just started writing, and we just started practicing whatever he wrote, and eventually it turned into a group. We would go to house parties and started meeting. And the thing about Ann Arbor is there's just tons and tons of musicians. It's still that way now, and so you would just run into people just like, yeah, I'll play for you, or I'll play with you. And so we were able to just sort of bring together all these kids, bass player, trumpet player, guitar player, DJ, and just, me and my friends were emceeing. And really that's, if you listen to Re-Education Camp, you can hear that blend of sort of sample-based hip-hop and instrumental-based hip-hop just sort of brought together into one thing. And I was sort of doing that for a while. I went to Iowa for graduate school. I got my doctorate in social psychology. And there was not
that many musicians out there. So I basically just took a sampler and a 4-track and all my music with me and just started producing my own stuff. When I came to Kentucky for the job at EKU as a professor, I pretty much came back into this sort of community of musicians. We have a lot of great musicians at our church, Crossroads. So I was like, man, I could start this thing back up where I started, really connecting with musicians. So Zach probably mentioned Brickhouse Blend is really where we met, and that's really you actually had interviewed Derek Sempervive before and talked to him before, right, Kenny?
Yes, I have. Yes,
Yeah.
I have.
So he and I were just hanging out, and I was like, "What do you think about starting up a band?" And I still was trying to figure out what that would even look like, but I was starting to kind of itch because I was producing hip hop, pretty sample heavy hip hop for almost, let's see, that would be about 10 to 15 years at that point. And I was just starting to get the itch. I was just like, I really need to start doing something different. So we started this, and I brought the hip component to it. I still brought MC in. I was DJing in it for a little while, and I was doing keys in it and percussion. And we went through sort of this, we cycled through a couple members of the group, and eventually we had a spot where we needed a bass player, and that's when Zach came in. And so we were doing that for a while, and we have 5 different people in it, all very different backgrounds, all brought something really cool to the table, and we had a blast doing it. We just had fun. And I think the problem with that was there was so much variety in what we did and what we thought we should be doing that is just kind of, we started pulling the part sort of and just sort of wanting to do different things. And at that point I was like, this is becoming more of a compromise than it should be for sort of the kind of thing we want to do for fun. So I was like, let's just kind of part our ways at this point. And Zach, did you tell him about New Orleans?
I kind of briefly.
Yeah. I mean, I was in New Orleans for a conference, and I was walking up and down Bourbon Street, and just grabbed a beer, walking up down Bourbon Street. And anyone who's ever been to New Orleans on Bourbon Street, you can basically just walk into a club, and you don't have to pay any kind of cover or anything. You can listen to a band. You can walk out. You can walk down the street. You can walk into another club. So I just walked in and out of clubs all night, just listening to all these different kinds of music. And so I texted everybody in the band, and Zach and I started texting back and forth. And I was like, at that point we had already decided not to do the Brickhouse Blend anymore. So I was like, let me get back to my hotel, and I'll kind of chat with you if that's all right. So we just chatted, and we started really talking through starting up something new, because I really liked how Zach had taken to some of the stuff that I had been writing for that group, and it kind of went through different versions. We tried some stuff with more like completely live instrumentation, and I was like, this isn't really working. And I wrote this verse, and I was like, I just kind of had to write this, and I sent it to him, and he sent it, and he's just like, this sounds really great. And I was like, I called him back. I was like, I think we need to do a plan B and just do all hip-hop, just you and me, and we'll just do it all. And that's pretty much what it came down to at that point. And it's really been a blast, ever since, just getting to work getting to on Bad Apple Records, going to the Lexington Music Awards, just like, I mean, meeting everybody like in Lexington hip-hop community, collaborating with people. It's been so much fun, and even doing interviews and stuff, podcasts and stuff like that we hadn't been doing before. So all this, including talking to you, man, it's just part of the fun.
Well, John, it was definitely great to meet you for the first time. We was at Hybrid the Rappers Nothing Dies Forever album release party. You was there to support. I was the host, and
your debut as the host.
Yeah, it was my debut, and it was quite. I was nervous. I have to be honest with you. I was nervous at first because It's one thing to be on the radio when nobody's looking at you, but then you on that
Right.
microphone. It's kind of like you're a musician of sorts. Like you're in front of people, and Hybrid was like, look, man, you do you be yourself. Just as long as you mention the albums and stuff, man, then you just wing it. So I hope I did it justice, and shout out to all the performers that night. It was a great time, and now Hybrid got me hosting another show.
Yeah.
He done unleashed something out of me.
Yeah, man. I thought you did a really great job, man. I assumed you just kind of do sort of this kind of cool, calm, collected thing the whole time, and you were up there. You were dynamic and everything, man. It was cool.
Yeah, I didn't want to be too mellow, man. I wanted, what was most important is I bring some sort of energy, especially when I introduce the performers. So that helped. So usually when I'm mellow is when I have conversations with people, but you can't be mellow when you are talking, when you're hosting a show. You gotta keep people excited or something.
Yep.
So I'm glad I was able to do that, and it was a lot of fun, and I look forward to May the 6th when I will be hosting Hustle and Flow 18 with DJ Hootie Hoo and Hybrid the Rapper. That's coming up May 6th at Lawrenceburg. It's going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to Bad Apple Records. Definitely one of my favorite local labels right now with you guys and Semper Vivi and so forth. What's it like being part of an indie label?
Well, Brandon is a really good friend of Derek of Semper Vivi, and they're very good buddies. And so I met Brandon through Derek, and Brandon and I hit it off really well. And he's a really stand-up guy. Like, he actually is one of the artists on the label. So he's he runs it, and he's also an artist. I would say that being on Bad Apple Records is, you get all the benefits of being on a record label without all the downsides of being on a record label, where you get your name out, you get to kind of do these podcasts with them and talk about music, and we're the only hip-hop group on that label. Everything else is pretty much indie rock. And Zach's actually basically a bass player for one of the other bands on that label whenever they play out live. And he can talk more about that. But and I think it's just Brandon wants everybody to be able to do what they do well. And he doesn't say, you're not allowed to do this. He really trusts what we do. And he never has said, I'm not comfortable putting that out or anything like that. Now, part of the advantage is being on basically an indie rock label. Whatever I say is hip-hop, he's just going to say, okay, because he doesn't really know whether that, if I'm just like, yeah, this is definitely, this is really like grassroots hip-hop. And I do mean that, but he's just kind of like, all right, you just go ahead, and he's not gonna challenge me on that by any means. But it's a blast being on that label. It's a great community of artists. Like we're all supporting each other. We're all, advertising, marketing for each other. We all listen to each other's music, and we'll give each other feedback. So it's a really good community. But it also has all the good parts of being on a label, and that label is really just completely taken off in the past couple of years. All the artists are producing their albums and EPs. There's been added artists to it, so it's a really active label. It's really exciting to be on it right now. But Zach can talk about being on that band. He was actually on TV a couple weeks ago.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I never had an experience like that before. yeah, the band's all around the dinner table, and Brandon, who runs the label, it's his band. He wrote and recorded everything for it, and wanted to kind of play some stuff out live, and so he approached me doing the bass for that. And so we've got several people from all different. Like Derek plays guitar from Simple Vivi. He also does lead guitar for all around the dinner table. So it's kind of like we've grabbed a bunch of people from all around the label to come in and do this thing. I think that's kind of the mantra anyway of Bad Apple Records. Is we're kind of just a community of artists all together, and we're all trying to support each other. I think that's kind of the ultimate way to do that. It was it's been a really fun experience though. We don't get to play out live too much, but it's great when we do get to do it. Kind of one of the things with re-education camp is we don't really have an opportunity to play out too much just because of the way our music is set up. But it kind of satisfies my urge to do that. But it's just a really cool thing. The label in general, it's really been a great experience for us, I think. Mm-hmm.
And for more info on Bad Apple Records, check them out on Twitter. They are on Facebook as well. They even got their own podcast and everything. So they basically, what's that term? Jack of all trades?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So they everywhere. Just Google Bad Apple Records and follow, whatever term that social media use. Just do it and support local music. So your guys' debut album is called, let me see if I get this right, Sock Op Boombox?
It's PsyOps Boombox.
Sox Boombox, okay.
PsyOps Boombox. If you read up or learn about CIA operations, one of their operations is PsyOp, psychological operations, which is pretty much propaganda. It's basically convincing the people that you are invading, that the people who are invading are the good guys. So part of re-education camp is we play the villain and the hero at the same time, where we sort of play the defiant, revolutionary hip-hop side of it, and we also play the sort of sinister government PSYOP group going in and pretty much tricking everybody into believing. So it's just sort of playing. It's sort of like we're a lot of the songs that I write is either one of those two perspectives, and sometimes I'll have one that's a mixture of both, and sometimes I'll have one song that's one side, and the next song is the response to that previous one. So PSYOP's Boombox is basically the PSYOP group communicating through hip-hop. But the whole point of re-education camp is, in lots of ways, it's re-education of what, as far as my opinion is, of what hip-hop should be in terms of what it should sound like and what the perspective should be, based on the movement as opposed to the music only. I take it very seriously, and I've taken it very seriously since I've started. And one of my first albums was "It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back," which some people say is the best hip-hop album ever, and some people say it's the best album ever. And that completely set in motion everything that I feel about hip-hop and what it should sound like and what it should be doing. So when I was growing up in, around hip-hop in the late 80s, I was around all of the, real big movements for, stop the violence and all the movements that are trying to really do that outreach, particularly in urban communities. And I just sort of felt like, even in the second golden age, even in the the mid '90s, I felt like that was starting to go off track. And I feel like unless it's underground, I feel like it's very off track. Except for a couple mainstream artists out there who really are working to remind everybody what that movement was supposed to be. I just feel like that's completely just the corporations have completely taken over and said, no, we're more interested in you selling records to teenage white boys, who is the biggest contingent of people buying hip hop out there. So it's like you should be just doing that for them, and whatever they're buying, you just do that. So for me, I feel like, as a personal mission, re-education camp is more getting back at what, Chuck D, KRS, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, what they were saying, and also just their style, without necessarily being so trapped in the old school sound or the old school topics that we don't allow ourselves to kind of move beyond that and sort of build off of that. But I just feel like if I couldn't do something where that was the foundation, then that feels like a waste of time to me.
Well said, man. And that's definitely a lack of conscience in hip hop these days. It's like nowadays it's like turn up and trap, and and granted, I listen to it. Like, I listen to the radio from time to time, but obviously I'm leaning towards more the underground and independent and local hip hop industry, because they bring something different. And I'm just proud to say that I'm a fan of these guys, because they bring passion. It's not over the top glamour propaganda and all that stuff. It's just, this is who they are, and take it or leave it. And for re-education camp, and for the music I've been hearing from you guys, and for the CD that John gave me, it's dope. And I thank you for reminding people that some of the pioneers back in those days, they weren't all about the record sales. It wasn't about the number one singles. It was about who can rap, who can spit, who could really make you think when you hear the lyrics. So, so I salute to you, John, and to you, Z, and to all the artists out there that brings that type of that hip hop. So it's refreshing, and something that needs to be on the radio more. But I guess for mainstream radio, whatever the fans want to hear, they're gonna play it. And I feel like I have an obligation as a DJ. I play all types of music, and if I like it, I'm gonna play it. And I play one of your old songs. I played Firewater. I played Five Lessons.
Cool.
I played those songs earlier. Dope tracks, man. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
So fast forward. Oh, go ahead.
The thing about how radio is operating, like mainstream radio, is, and this is where the social psychologist in me comes in, and this is actually confirmed, that the more you listen, the more you're exposed to something that, as long as you don't hate it at first, the more you're exposed to something, you're going to like it more and more and more. It's called the mere exposure effect. And it's always basically, why are people buying, these mainstream artists if you're getting it for free multiple times a day? Why are you buying the signal that you're hearing for free on the radio multiple times a day? And the reason is because the people who are running the radio programs, they're actually dictating what you like. They're providing you and telling you, this is what you like, because they're playing it so often that it's, it's getting in your head. It's this catchy tune. and so it gets in your head, and you want to go buy it. But so the idea that the radio stations are playing what people are demanding is actually flipped around. They are telling the listeners, this is the good stuff, and people are believing it, and people are actually, because they listen to it so much and it gets in their head and it's catchy. And it's just like that. That's the rule. That's how these things get popular. It's just like, so if you ask people what music do you want to hear, just completely blind, just like, tell me what you want to hear in a song, they probably would not say the things they're actually listening to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if they say, I want a song that talks about real issues, and I got this girl, I don't know if you've heard of Invincible or Ill Weaver out of Detroit, crazy lyricist, and kind of worked with her a little bit when I was in Ann Arbor. She did a song on suicide, very much, linked into to mainstream in terms of she's underground, but she'd be able to get mainstream to play it. And they're just like, I think it was MTV2. They're just like, I don't think our listeners are interested in this kind of song. And it's like, but this is the kind of thing that they should be listening to, And if they played it 20 times a day, then people would say, yes, that's the kind of song we want. So it's all a matter of, programs like yours where you are actually playing a lot of the music that what I think people do want to hear. Really, really what they want to hear good storytelling. They want to hear like good musicianship, and they want to hear things of substance. They want to hear things that make them feel something and think something.
Absolutely. And, I get enough of that music going to work, having to hear that 10 hours a day, and it's like, just turn it off already. Like, I'm like, that's why I'm starting to listen to 1990s music more than today's music, because I get enough of it working 4, 5, 6 days a week. And but what are you gonna do? I mean, it is what it is. People can either hear it or not. It is what it is. Now, fast forward, you guys got not one but 2 new projects coming out. The second full-length album is called Challenge the League.
Yep.
And
much easier to pronounce.
challenging the league. It's and I read your Facebook the other day, and there's a song called "The Turnaround," and it's with Lee and Napier.
Yep.
So what's it been like working on this record, and what can people expect from Challenging the League?
Zach, I'll let you take that one.
Well, it's been it's been pretty great, really. Leanne is someone we both know through church, and we like to have I think some collaborators come in, just a good, strong female vocalist who can sing, and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. I've got a recording studio here in my apartment I live in. We got a little vocal booth set up, and it's where we do all our work. And she came in here and she just absolutely killed it. And as for like the whole album, it's really been a lot of fun. I feel like on the first album, it was kind of more John and I trying to feel each other out, how we wanted to make this work musically speaking. And I think we've kind of figured all that out now. And so what you're going to be hearing on this next album is a lot kind of a better meshing, I guess, of what I bring and what he brings. It's still going to be that hip-hop sound, but it's going to have just a little bit different flavor, because I think John maybe could expand on it a little bit more. But it's just it's going to be different, but more of the same at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And thematically, the whole album, Challenge the League, is basically challenging whatever the group is that is in charge of whatever area. So we're challenging, the mainstream hip hop, people who are up on top in hip hop and the music. We're challenging, news stations that are basically controlling what people think. We're challenging DC, on politics. We're challenging status quo. We're challenging hopelessness. We're challenging hatred. We're challenging anything that seems to be running the show right now. And that's, so we've taken that theme and we're basically, applying it to all these different things. And we're going to use a completely different musical style. I mean, one song we're doing in 7/8 time signature, which is like, I don't think anyone in hip hop has actually done that yet. And we're not doing it just because. We're doing it because the song sort of demanded that it needed to be in 7/8 time signature, which is a very challenging time signature to do. It's basically your standard 4/4 minus a eighth note beat missing at the end of every measure. So you have to basically account for that last beat being missing. But it's about the song is called 7 o'clock, and it's basically about people who work all the time, and they're working 7 days a week, all day long. They clock in, they clock out, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or whatever, and they're making a lot of money, but they are completely off track in terms of what humans are supposed to be doing. So the song demanded that it be weird and sort of feeling like something's off. And so I was like, let's do something in 7/8. And so it's all things like that where it's like, it's hip-hop, but it's like we really want to do something staying true to hip-hop, but being completely different than what anyone's ever done before. So not disrespecting the movement, not disrespecting the genre, but just really trying to stretch the limits of how far can we take this music while still being true to the roots of it.
I definitely like the album title, especially it feels like an action movie of sorts. And not only that, but it's also challenging artists to dig deep. It's challenging people to humanity of sorts. It's challenging what's going on in society, and I'm very excited about this record. I'm looking forward to giving it a listen and buying the record as well. And man, I wish I could have y'all on, keep this interview going, but I'm over the 9 o'clock hour. And
Sure.
I gotta get off the air here, but I definitely want to have y'all back on
Cool.
for the EP that y'all working on. We could discuss that
Cool.
and so much more. So definitely keep you guys in mind in the
Sounds good, man.
future. But thank you, John. Thank you, Z, for being on the show this evening. Truly appreciate it, and
Yeah, thanks, Danny.
continue success. Challenging the League is the new name of the new album coming soon. And y'all still planning to do a album release on May 14th, or y'all push that back?
The EP with Ramel,
Yeah.
2 L's, that's going to be pushed to July.
Okay.
And so we'll have a release party probably late July, release date same. And we'd love to have you out, man. We'd love to have you out to the party. I'll definitely tell you about it. And if you want to do, one of these out at the show or something like that, we could do that just on the spot.
Sounds good to me. Great chatting with you fellas. And also, they on Facebook, Re-Education Camp. They on Twitter, elsewhere, We Education Camp. And they on Reverb Nation as well. You can hear some of their songs there. And Bad Apple Records. Google them. Check it out. Facebook, Twitter, they all over the place. You guys have a great evening. Have a great weekend. Thank you for both being on the show.
Wait, thanks,
for having
Kenny.
us on.
You guys have a great night.
All right, you too, man.
All right, bye-bye.